Thank you. Just, yeah, sorry. Yeah. So as you can see, thank you so much for inviting me, and I'm so honored to be here in this distinguished gathering. What I have to say is really from the point of view of a practitioner. I'm not an academic. I'm a cultural heritage professional, a conservator who trained in India, and then I have been working for the past 18 years at ICROM, which is International Center for Cultural Study of Preservation of Cultural Property, based in Rome. And it was created after the Second World War, when the world UNESCO felt that there is need for a body that needs to gather information from all around the world and study conservation of cultural heritage. And since then, since 1959, the notion of cultural heritage has changed vastly. And as you can see, I bring to you another perspective on global commons, a common home for all of us, the culture part, which is kind of there in the Sustainable Development Agenda, but not so much there, not so visible. It's like gender. Gender is everywhere, but nowhere. So, similarly, culture is everywhere, but nowhere. But culture is a very important aspect of what we are talking about, a planet, a healthy planet, and peace and well being. And my work lately, since 2010, I have been working in areas of disasters, intersecting conflict, and I've just come back from a meeting from Sudan, where I'm trying to help Sudanese national authorities to develop a response for safeguarding heritage in Sudan. I'm also working in Ukraine. But one thing in my work that I find, which is very apparent, is that with every 1 degree rise that we will experience, and especially particularly in our region, in Asia, we've just heard China's massive growth, but Asia is also the place where temperatures are rising 2 times faster than the global average. And with every 1 degree rise, the cost for disaster response will triple. Are we ready? We are already seeing the impact of climate change in form of crop failures, prolonged drought, cyclic floods, storms, and wildfires. And this is likely to increase. It's going to drive migration. It is driving migration. The people I work with are sometimes have lost their homes and are living in, refugee camps, and they have lost everything that they hold dear. And only thing that they keep that keeps them going is their memory of the place that was, and the place that will remain with them and their sometimes even future generations. So my question is, in this August gathering, what I wonder as a cultural heritage professional is how can culture and heritage could help tackle this climate crisis? And which heritage are we talking about? We're sitting in Vatican. We're sitting in a place full of history and full of heritage. We know today that climate change is more than just carbon in the air. It's also about legacy of greed. We just heard that the steam engine was invented. We've heard about colonialism. We've heard about imperialistic greed, but the greed continues. And we are talking about cultures here. We are talking about conflict of civilizations here, and we are living through that. Our worldviews are dominated by conflict of civilizations, intolerance, culture of greed, more, more, more. Where will this culture stop? So when Professor Puzo asked me to come here, and I was thinking about it, and I'm bringing you some views from my work. One of the key concepts in from where I come from, it's about Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam, world, one family, united, and we have to live in this world. We are one family. It's also about divinity, but it's also about respecting where we are and that we are interdependent, the principle of interdependence. But then this work is also, these words of wisdom are also echoed in the work of Dr. Anne Paulina, who is a indigenous leader from Western Australia and who's single handedly trying to raise awareness about multi species justice. Her work is all about not taking away water from the river so that the communities that are depending on that river can live. And she's the one who's saying that river has a life, has a right to live, is like a living being. And this is what multi-species justice, and I'm sure you must have read about, is that it not only includes the interest of all humans, but of the non-human, such as other animals, plants, forests, rivers, and ecological systems. Taking their interests seriously as justice claims means there is a moral and political obligation for basic institutions of society and including them in our legal systems to take these interests into account when making decisions. They cannot be dismissed simply because they are inconvenient or costly for certain humans, and attending to them is not a matter of charity or generosity. So we are talking about multi-species justice. We are not talking about humans. We are not talking about the culture of me, but the culture of we. And there is also this notion of ecocide. We do have to punish crimes against the biodiversity, killing of biodiversity, of spoiling this environment. And we have to start thinking now, because the reality otherwise is really we are we are cheating our next generations out of a future on this planet. This brings me to another concept that I have grown up with, which is of paying debt to your elders, paying debt. And this is again coming from Vedic philosophy, Hindu Vedic philosophy, of paying debt to nature and respecting life in all forms, and making sure that you leave this world, if not better, but just the same. This worldview, again, through my work, I find it in Iran. For example, now I'm working with a group of women who are looking at kainats. Kainats are aquifers, underground aquifers, which bring water to the desert. These are man-made creations, but along with kainat is the culture of sharing water. You only take what you need and then you share with the neighbor, and it is part of the customary law. So we really have to invest in these systems and these types of cultures that are respecting interdependence and that are not based on sheer greed. Ubuntu, as Archbishop Desmond Tutu said, I am because we are. It's a South African, you know, philosophical view. But in Ubuntu, we can find the principle of interdependence. Peace is also, now that we are talking about interdependence, with interdependence, we can extend it to well-being. And from personal well-being, we can also situate well-being and the notion of peace in cultures. In India, it is known as Shanti, when no one is in state of conflict and no one is threatened. In Japanese, it is aligning oneself with the common good. And in Hebrew, I don't know if these interpretations are, these can be challenged, but these are interpretations that I have researched for my work. And they are all tying in together. It's all about common good. It's all about common prosperity. It's about respecting the other and also living with other and ensuring that there is coexistence. Peace is also not absence of war. And we are talking about here about well-being. And if we look at the sustainable development goal of peace, then we really have to think about positive peace. And what is positive peace? When we are one with nature, when our nature is, when we are respecting our environment, and also when we are not violating the rights of the others, and when we are not, we have eradicated inequality. So it's not about economic good, it's about eradicating inequality, and it means prosperity for all. So we really have to think about like what I really, the previous speaker, Professor Giovanni, as you said, we really have to think about how we see development. What is development? Is absence of green development? Is total green development? What is development? And is it really a matter of GDP? We are also working on the ground with communities. It is time that we shed this image of working with governments. We really have to go and connect with those communities that are still the last bastions, that still believe in interdependence, that are still living in harmony with their ecosystems. And we have to go to these people who still hold this idea that existence of the other is the is existence of the other and the culture of the other is to be celebrated. This is our latest work where we are trying to develop these indicators, community-based indicators for peace that can be felt through heritage. And with that, I just would like to say that there is a lot of work to be done, and culture should be integrated and mainstreamed in the development discussions, and culture should be put at the core of what we are talking here, or what we are discussing here today. Thank you.